The massive alien ships loomed against the dark canvas of space, their metallic hulls gleaming with an ominous precision that suggested centuries of technological superiority. Earth's orbital defense systems buzzed with quiet tension, a network of sensors and communication arrays tracking every minute movement of the approaching fleet. Lieutenant J. Park stood perfectly still, his eyes fixed on the holographic display that flickered with real-time data. Around him, the command center hummed with a controlled anxiety that spoke of years of preparation and training. His colleague, Captain Hai Kim, worked silently beside him, her fingers dancing across quantum interfaces that translated complex, alien communication patterns. The first transmission came unexpectedly, a deep, resonant voice that seemed to vibrate through the communication systems, speaking in a language that was simultaneously mathematical and linguistic. Admiral Koral of the Galactic Reconnaissance Fleet was not making a request. He was delivering an ultimatum. Humans of Earth, the message began. Your technological capabilities are primitive. Your planetary resources are now property of the Galactic Confederation. Surrender is your only rational choice. Jay exchanged a brief glance with Hai. No words were needed. Their training, their preparation, and their understanding of human resilience spoke volumes in that single moment of silent communication. The alien fleet's approach was methodical. Massive carrier ships surrounded by smaller, dart-like assault vessels created a formation that had conquered hundreds of civilizations across multiple star systems. Their weapon systems were calibrated for quick, decisive victories. They expected minimal resistance. What they didn't understand was human unpredictability. Earth's military had been quietly preparing for decades, not just with weapons, but with adaptive strategies that went beyond traditional warfare. Every major city was now a potential defensive network. Communication systems could transform into jamming mechanisms. Transportation infrastructure could become mobile defensive platforms. The first wave of alien ships entered Earth's outer orbital zone. Their scanning technologies began mapping potential landing zones, identifying strategic locations for their initial ground assault. They saw sprawling cities, complex technological infrastructure, but they interpreted these as signs of vulnerability. They were wrong. In the command center, Jay noticed subtle changes in the alien fleet's approach. Their initial rigid formation was beginning to show slight irregularities. Something was making them hesitate. "They're scanning," Hai muttered, her voice low and controlled. "But they're not seeing what they expect." What the aliens couldn't comprehend was that humanity had been watching, learning, and preparing. Every technological advancement, every military strategy, every communication protocol had been designed with one fundamental understanding. Survival is not just about strength, but about adaptability. The alien ships continued their approach. Massive energy signatures began charging weapon systems. Ground-based defense platforms on Earth started to activate, their designs a perfect blend of defensive technology and unexpected offensive capabilities. Admiral Koral's voice crackled through the communication systems again. "Final warning. Surrender or face complete destruction." J. Park allowed himself a small smile. Humans had heard such threats before. Throughout their history, they had faced impossible odds. They had survived ice ages, global conflicts, technological revolutions. An alien invasion was just another challenge. "Prepare defensive protocols," he said quietly to Hai. "But also prepare our surprise." The first shots were about to be fired. The moment when humanity would show the galaxy that being underestimated was the most dangerous mistake any civilization could make. The alien fleet moved closer. Earth waited, not in fear, not in panic, but with a calculated, patient readiness that would soon become legendary across the stars. This was not just a battle. This was humanity's first true test on a galactic stage. The first alien landing pods crashed into the Korean peninsula with thunderous precision, their metallic shells breaking through urban landscapes like heated knives through soft butter. Colonel Wu Li watched from a hidden underground command center as the invasion began, his weathered hands gripping a digital interface that mapped every incoming vessel. The aliens believed their technological superiority would guarantee an immediate surrender. They were wrong. Within minutes of landing, the invasion force discovered something entirely unexpected. The cities were not just urban spaces, they were living, breathing defensive networks. Every building seemed to have a purpose beyond its original design. Highways transformed into complex communication channels. Streetlights became signal jammers. Ordinary infrastructure turned into an adaptive combat environment. In Seoul, the first ground battle erupted with surprising intensity. Alien combat. Units expecting minimal resistance found themselves trapped in a maze of urban complexity. Military units mixed seamlessly with civilian infrastructure. Delivery trucks became mobile weapon platforms. Construction equipment transformed into improvised defensive mechanisms. A group of local engineers, led by a quick-thinking woman named Ji-eun, quickly hacked into the alien communication frequencies. They began sending false signals, creating confusion within the invasion force. Small drones, originally designed for city maintenance, now carried miniature electromagnetic pulse devices that disabled alien equipment. The aliens' first major mistake was underestimating human creativity. Their battle protocols were designed for straightforward conquests, planets with predictable defensive structures. Humanity's chaotic adaptive approach completely disrupted their invasion strategy. Colonel Wu Li's strategy was simple: transform the entire landscape into a living weapon. Every citizen became a potential defender. Information spread rapidly through encrypted networks. People who were moments ago ordinary workers now became part of an intricate resistance movement. In rural areas, farmers used agricultural equipment as makeshift weapons. Tractors became armored vehicles. Irrigation systems were quickly converted into communication networks. The line between civilian and military personnel blurred completely. The alien commander, frustrated by the unexpected resistance, tried to establish a direct communication channel, but human technicians had already developed sophisticated jamming technologies that turned their own communication systems against them. Military units moved with unprecedented coordination. Unlike traditional warfare, where units followed strict, hierarchical commands, these teams operated with a fluid, almost organic flexibility. A unit could lose its primary leadership and still continue its mission with remarkable efficiency. Young soldiers like Private Min Ho demonstrated an adaptability that shocked the alien invaders. When standard communication systems were destroyed, they used civilian mobile networks. When traditional weapons failed, they improvised with available technology. The invasion was turning into something the aliens had never experienced: a total population resistance where the entire human ecosystem became a weapon. Satellite images showed something remarkable. What looked like random urban destruction was actually a carefully orchestrated defensive strategy. Damaged buildings were not signs of defeat, but carefully planned obstacles. Destroyed infrastructure was transformed into defensive positions. In the mountain regions, local communities created complex defensive networks using terrain as their primary weapon. Narrow valleys became killing zones. Rocky landscapes became natural fortification points. The aliens discovered that conquering wasn't just about technological superiority, but understanding the environment. Communication between alien units became increasingly fragmented. Their rigid command structure, which had conquered numerous civilizations, was completely ineffective against humanity's fluid, unpredictable resistance. Colonel Wu Li allowed himself a small smile. The invasion was proceeding exactly as they had prepared, not with overwhelming force but with intelligent, adaptive resistance. The first day of invasion was closing. The aliens had expected a quick victory. Instead, they found themselves in a complex, ever-changing battlefield where every inch of ground came with an unexpected cost. Humanity was not just fighting. They were transforming the very concept of resistance. Dr. Sung Min's research facility looked like nothing more than an abandoned industrial complex on the outskirts of a small industrial town. But beneath its weathered exterior, something extraordinary was happening. Captured alien technology lay scattered across massive workbenches, each piece carefully dissected, analyzed, and reimagined. The first breakthrough came unexpectedly. A small quantum processor, no larger than a human palm, became the key to understanding the alien technological infrastructure. Where most scientists would have approached the technology with caution, Dr. Sung Min and his team attacked it with an almost hungry curiosity. Young researchers worked in shifts, their eyes burning with determination. They weren't just studying alien technology. They were learning to speak its language. Computer systems that once seemed incomprehensible began to reveal their secrets. Each decoded circuit became a weapon. Each understood algorithm a potential defense. Within weeks, hybrid systems started emerging. A communication device would suddenly have capabilities far beyond its original design. Experimental weapons began to take shape, systems that could adapt, learn, and transform faster than any known technology. The military watched. With a mixture of excitement and disbelief, traditional weapon designs were being replaced by something entirely new. A rifle could now change its frequency, adapt to different environmental conditions, and predict enemy movement patterns. Defensive systems were no longer static. They were living, thinking entities. Dr. Park Ji-hoon, a quantum physics expert, discovered something truly remarkable. The alien technology had inherent weaknesses that could be exploited. Their systems, while advanced, relied on predictable communication protocols. Humans could not just defend against these systems, they could turn them inside out. Satellite networks were quickly repurposed. What were once communication arrays became complex defensive systems. Every piece of technology became a potential weapon. Smartphones could now interface with military-grade systems. Civilian infrastructure became an extension of the defensive network. The research team worked with a sense of urgency that bordered on desperation. They knew their survival depended on speed and innovation. Traditional research timelines meant death. They needed to compress decades of technological development into weeks. Artificial intelligence systems began to evolve at an unprecedented rate. They learned from every alien interaction, every captured piece of technology. Machine learning algorithms that once took months to develop now emerged in days. The AI was not just analyzing, it was predicting, adapting, transforming. Military equipment underwent radical transformation. A standard drone could now become a complex communication disruptor. Vehicles could change their electromagnetic signature in milliseconds. What seemed like simple machines became adaptive combat platforms. Dr. Sung Min understood the fundamental principle driving their work. It wasn't about matching alien technology. It was about understanding its core principles and then surpassing them. Humans didn't just copy, they reimagined. The alien invasion force monitoring these developments began to show signs of concern. Their initial reports of a primitive civilization were being quickly replaced by warnings of unprecedented technological adaptation. Power systems were revolutionized. Energy extraction methods captured from alien technology were combined with human ingenuity. A small generator could now produce energy levels that previously required massive industrial complexes. Communication networks transformed. What was once a simple internet became a living, breathing defensive system. Information flow was no longer linear but adaptive and unpredictable. The aliens found themselves facing an enemy that could change its entire communication infrastructure in seconds. By the end of the first month, the research facility had become something more than a scientific outpost. It was the birthplace of humanity's technological renaissance. Every captured alien device was a puzzle, every solved algorithm a potential salvation. Dr. Sung Min looked at the latest prototype, a weapon system that could change its entire operational frequency faster than the human eye could perceive. This was more than technology. This was humanity's response to an impossible challenge. The technological evolution had begun, and the aliens were about to discover that humans were not just survivors. They were innovators. Private Yoonji lay bleeding on the broken concrete, her right arm hanging at an unnatural angle. The alien combat unit approached, expecting her to be neutralized. They didn't understand human resilience. With her left hand, she pulled a hidden communication device. Her squad was down. The defensive position seemed lost, but in her mind, defeat was never an option. The alien commanders had studied thousands of civilizations. They understood technological warfare, calculated invasion strategies, and predictable battle responses. What they couldn't comprehend was human psychological complexity, the ability to transform pain into determination, weakness into strength. Yunji's team had been trained differently, not just as soldiers but as adaptive human warriors who understood that mental strength outweighed physical limitations. When standard communication systems failed, they created new networks. When weapons were destroyed, they improvised. In the Unwilling command center, Colonel Park watched the battlefield feed. What looked like a losing engagement was actually a carefully orchestrated psychological strategy. Each seemingly random action was part of a larger, complex plan. The aliens discovered something terrifying. Humans didn't just fight. They transformed conflict into an existential challenge. Wounded units continued fighting with an intensity that defied biological understanding. A soldier losing blood would still provide critical information. A destroyed communication center would suddenly become a trap for the invaders. Every loss was an opportunity. Every defeat a potential strategic advantage. Psychological training had become more important than traditional military preparation. Soldiers learned to control fear, to turn stress into fuel, to see beyond immediate survival. They were taught that the mind was the most powerful weapon. Yunji's squad had a saying, broken, but not defeated. It wasn't just a motto, it was a fundamental approach to survival. When the alien unit approached her position, expecting an easy elimination, she activated a hidden electromagnetic pulse device. The device wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement of human unpredictability. Across different battle zones, similar scenarios played out. Soldiers who should have been defeated found ways to continue fighting. Communication networks that seemed destroyed would suddenly spring back to life. Defensive positions that looked hopeless transformed into complex traps. The alien invasion force began to experience something they had never encountered: psychological warfare at a civilization-wide level. Every human became a potential resistance fighter. Age, gender, professional background, these became irrelevant. The entire species was united by a single understanding. Survival was not just about physical strength, but mental resilience. In urban centers, civilians became part of the resistance. Information networks spread faster than the aliens could track. A delivery truck driver could become a critical communication node. A school teacher could provide strategic intelligence. The line between civilian and military completely disappeared. Colonel Park understood the fundamental principle. Humans were not fighting just to survive, but to prove their right to exist. Each battle was more than a military engagement. It was a statement about human potential. Yunji's electromagnetic pulse disabled the alien combat unit's primary systems. What should have been her moment of defeat became her greatest victory. She transmitted her team's final coordinates, ensuring that their sacrifice would not be in vain. The aliens were learning a brutal lesson. Technological superiority meant nothing against a species that could transform psychological limitations into strengths. Medical units discovered something remarkable. Soldiers were healing faster, adapting more quickly, showing recovery rates that defied standard biological expectations. The stress of invasion was not breaking humans, it was evolving them. As the battle continued, the alien commanders realized they were facing more than a military resistance. They were confronting a species-wide psychological transformation. Humans were not just defending their planet, they were redefining the very concept of survival. Yunji, bleeding but unbroken, represented something the aliens could never understand. The human spirit was not a weakness, it was their most powerful weapon. The psychological transformation had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Proxima Centauri system became humanity's ultimate battlefield. Admiral Coral watched in growing horror as human vessels, cobbled together from multiple technological sources, systematically dismantled what was once considered the most invincible invasion fleet in galactic history. Captain Hai Kim's flagship moved with a precision that defied traditional combat logic. Where alien vessels expected linear movement, human ships danced, sliding between defensive positions, using gravitational fields as unexpected weapons, transforming every potential weakness into a strategic advantage. Quantum communication networks, developed in those underground research facilities, now controlled an entire human battle fleet. Each ship was more than a weapon. It was a living, thinking entity that could adapt faster than any known combat system. The alien communication channels began to fragment. Confusion spread like a virus through their command structure. They had conquered hundreds of civilizations using standardized invasion protocols. Humanity was destroying those protocols with every passing moment. Experimental weapon systems, reverse-engineered from captured alien technology, fired with unprecedented accuracy. Electromagnetic pulses turned massive warships into floating metal coffins. Adaptive targeting systems predicted alien movement patterns before their own commanders could recognize the threat. Admiral Corral couldn't understand what was happening. His centuries of military experience meant nothing against an enemy that didn't follow any known rules of engagement. Humans were not just fighting, they were rewriting the entire concept of warfare. Small human vessels moved between massive alien ships like intelligent predators. They weren't just attacking, they were learning, adapting, transforming with each passing second. What looked like random movement was actually a complex living battle strategy. The galactic observation systems monitoring the conflict began sending urgent communications. This was no longer just a local conflict. This was a fundamental challenge to established galactic power structures. Human technology had evolved beyond simple defensive mechanisms. They had transformed alien technology into something entirely new. Communication systems that once belonged to the invaders now controlled entire battle networks. Weapon systems adapted faster than any known computational model could predict. Psychological warfare reached its peak. Human commanders used communication channels not just to fight, but to confuse, to manipulate, to break the alien fleet's collective mental structure. Every transmission was a weapon. Every signal, a potential trap. The battle moved beyond physical combat. It became a contest of adaptation, of psychological resilience, of pure human determination. Smaller human vessels began targeting critical communication nodes on larger alien ships. They weren't just destroying equipment, they were systematically dismantling the alien fleet's ability to coordinate. Each destroyed system became a cascading failure that spread through their entire military structure. Admiral Corral watched his most advanced warships become nothing more than floating debris. His invasion force, which had conquered civilizations across multiple star systems, was being defeated by a species they had initially considered primitive. The human fleet moved with an organic complexity that defied traditional battle strategies. Ships communicated not through standard communication protocols, but through adaptive quantum networks that changed frequency faster than the alien systems could track. Defensive positions became offensive opportunities. Damaged human vessels transformed into complex trap mechanisms. What looked like defeat was actually a carefully orchestrated strategic move. As the battle reached its final stages, something became clear. This was more than a military conflict. This was a fundamental challenge to established galactic power structures. Humanity was not just defending itself, it was declaring its right to exist on its own terms. The last alien communication burst came with a mixture of confusion and respect. They were witnessing something unprecedented, a civilization that could transform technological limitations into ultimate strengths. Captain Hai Kim's final transmission was simple but powerful. We are humans. We adapt. We survive. The Proxima Centauri system fell silent. The invasion was over, but something much larger had just begun. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage, and they were here to stay.